The anxious attachment relationship repeat. What is this? What does it mean? And how do we stop doing it? This is what I'm going to take you through in this video. And the most important part, honestly, is about how to stop doing this. So make sure you stick around to the end if you want to do a deep dive into that. I will say before I dive into the video as well that this is something everybody goes through. You're going to see this a lot throughout the video. I'm going to give you some examples. This is something I saw in every single client situation without exception to this day, after like 10, 12 years of working with people. And this all has to do with the subconscious mind. So if you want to do a much deeper dive into a course all about this specifically, you can check out the Emotional Mastery and Belief Reprogramming course for free for 7 days using the link down below that will go much more deeply into this topic. So essentially, when working with clients, because as many of you know, who watch this channel, I ran a really busy client-based practice for the better part of a decade before actually starting PDS. And I would see over and over again these repeat cycles for people in their lives, to the point where I would actually spend the first session, the discovery session with clients, actually just looking for these things. And I'll give you a few examples of this. So let's say I have a client, we'll call this client Susan, and this client grows up and they feel bullied in their, peer dynamics at school and perhaps in their family. Maybe they have a whole bunch of brothers and, they feel like they're kind of the odd one out and they feel bullied in that kind of dynamic as well. I'm definitely not saying that all brothers bully their sisters, but I'm just saying, as an example here. And then this person grows up. They have these wounds around feeling unsafe. They have these wounds around feeling rejected. They have these wounds around feeling excluded. And because your subconscious mind literally creates the reality, the sort of the filter you view the world through, you are more likely to also project these wounds onto other circumstances. So you grow up, you feel like this as a child or in your childhood, and then you grow up and as an adult, you feel the exact same way. And so what happens? Well, you maybe go into a workplace in a new place with new people, and you might find yourself constantly waiting for rejection to happen, constantly feeling not good enough, constantly feeling unsafe and walking on eggshells, and feeling frustrated and defeated. And as a result of all of these different feelings, you're probably going to be more reactive in your environment. And so, as a result of all of that, you may find that you're in these arguing, sort of fighting dynamics again in your workplace as an adult. Also, maybe feeling excluded, having a difficult time fitting in because sometimes these wounds where we really fear rejection, being not good enough, being excluded, make us feel insecure and don't even allow us to really show our true self to other people, meaning we're more likely to be disliked. We're more likely to have a hard time connecting. And then, of course, if on top of that, you pair that with feeling unsafe and defensive, somebody who's constantly defensive and making defensive remarks in their workplace, you see how this path plays out. Now, I'm not under any circumstances blaming the person because blaming would not even be an accurate thing to do. What I am saying is this has to do with unresolved childhood trauma. And what you'll see is every single time that we have unsolved childhood trauma, it programs our subconscious mind with these different imprints, these wounds around feeling things like I will be disliked, I'm not good enough, something's wrong with me, or I'm defective, I'll be excluded, I'll be rejected. And we take these wounds and they literally, as I mentioned earlier, color the filter we see the world through at a subconscious level. And so, what ends up taking place here is that as an adult, we keep reprojecting these wounds out, and all of these wounds are more and more likely to become self-fulfilling prophecies because that's how it works. Let's look at some other honorable mentions here. Our anxious, preoccupied attachment style. Maybe you grew up feeling this perceived abandonment. Maybe parents are really inconsistent, or maybe one parent kind of leaves, and there's this dynamic of feeling like one parent's really there, the other person's really gone. And that can create this feeling of abandonment, this big abandonment wound. And as an adult, what do you constantly reproject? You constantly reproject, oh my gosh, I'm about to be abandoned. And so as a result of that, you will see that you also are more likely to be abandoned because the exact same behaviors, unfortunately, statistically, it's true for anxious preoccupieds. The behaviors that you use to try to hold on tight to people and relationships often accidentally push them away. And sometimes being too agreeable stops you from actually showing your true self to people and actually being able to foster deep and true connections, leading to loneliness, disconnection, and of course, this self-fulfilling prophecy. So I want to be clear about a couple of things here. Every single person has this. And what happens is that our internal world is on repeat, but we don't realize because it's happening in different forms in the external world. So, for example, as a child, that abandonment anxiety was happening with parents. And as an adult, it's happening in romantic relationships. Who would put two and two together unless you're actually studying this stuff and recognizing these things? So, we don't realize that we still have the same internal pattern happening over and over again because our external world is changing and we're much more focused on the external world. So, here's how this actually happens. Okay. This happens because you have to ask yourself too, like, well, if I had an abandonment trauma, for example, at like 8 years old, but now I'm in my 30s, you know, why is this still like affecting me? How am I still, it happened decades ago. How is this still affecting me now? Well, the answer is in order for it to have stayed alive and in order for it to stay in this repeat pattern, you literally have to be living your entire internal reality by actually investing in these ideas over and over again. It's like you actually are recreating these wounds every single day in the relationship to yourself. In other words, you abandon yourself all the time. You abandon your own feelings, your own needs. You abandon your own boundaries. You tell yourself the story of how you're not good enough and not going to be good enough for your partner. So you are literally like, imagine somebody's following you around all day telling you you're not good enough. You're not good enough. Here's why. You're actually reigniting these old wounds every single day on autopilot over and over and over again. And so whatever patterns you internalize from your childhood and you've kept alive in the relationship to yourself, you're also more likely to be a match to. Because when you start seeing the red flags of like, this person seems like they're going to be the type of person who's emotionally unavailable or be the type of person who pulls away or abandons, you're not even going to hear the red flags properly because your subconscious mind is responsible for 95 to 97% of your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, your decisions, your actions. And so what ends up taking place is your subconscious mind is like, your conscious mind might be like, this isn't healthy. I'm seeing some red flags. And your subconscious mind is going to be like, well, it feels familiar. I'm really attracted to this person. And you're going to keep investing in that person. So here's what we actually do to change it. Okay. I want you to write down all of the different major patterns that you see in terms of who you attract over and over again in relationships. And I'll give you some like common ones for anxious, preoccupied. Um, if you attract the abandoners, probably because you self-abandon. If you attract emotionally unavailable people, probably because you're emotionally unavailable to yourself. And again, these roots are in childhood. It's because these roots first existed in childhood where you were emotionally unavailable to you, or sorry, you had somebody emotionally unavailable to you, right? So you internalize your childhood, store it in your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind largely determines the relationship to yourself. Then, as a result of that, you keep refueling this relationship to yourself, which is you just refueling your own childhood wounds on autopilot without realizing it. And then it feels familiar to invest in people who are more likely to also refuel the same wounds. Hence the relationship repeat. So we have to make the list. Neglectful, where am I neglectful to myself, to my own dreams, to my own time with myself, to my own mission or vision or plans for my life or things that are important to me, to my friendships, to my family relationships when I'm in a romantic one, right? So try to look. Inconsistent, if you attract inconsistent people in your relationships, were you inconsistent to yourself? If you attract invalidating people, aloof people, people who are taking advantage of you, where are you invalidating to yourself or critical to yourself? Aloof to yourself, like literally not paying yourself any attention. Where are you taking advantage of yourself to please others all the time? Make a list of these traits. This is actually a form of shadow work. If you make a list of all these different traits, then I want you to make a list of where you do these things to yourself specifically. And then I want you to practice one thing every single day that you will do differently. So if the big theme for you is being neglectful, do the work, right? Stop neglecting yourself. What's one thing you can do each day? Sit with yourself and journal for 10 minutes or sit with yourself in meditation for 10 minutes. Break the pattern. When you break these patterns in relationship to self, you recondition them in your own subconscious mind. You can leverage repetition and emotion. The more repetition and emotion we have, the faster we reprogram. And then what you're going to see is that when it's no longer a part of your subconscious relationship to self, you are not attracted to people who are going to also help you repeat this pattern. So much of what we're just attracted to in other people is literally ourselves, is literally the relationship we have to ourselves because our subconscious wants familiarity. But we don't realize it because we're looking at the person. We're using our conscious mind to evaluate. We're not realizing that everybody's mirroring us back to ourselves in many varieties of ways. So this is your relationship repeat pattern. Really powerful thing to stop. Really powerful thing if you don't want any more abandoning relationships, if you actually want to attract emotionally available people, have people stick around, have relationships where the dynamic changes, you don't feel like you're chasing people all the time. This is the root. And again, as I mentioned, if you want to do a full course on this, it's like an hour and a half long. You can get through it in 7 days. I'll put the link down below. It's all about how to reprogram your subconscious in these areas. Very specifically, talked a lot about relationship repeats. And you can use the link for free for 7 days down below. Also, if you want to take an attachment style test for free, you can get a free report. It helps you track your percentages of your attachment style, and I'll put that link as well. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching. I hope this was valuable to you, and I can't wait to see you in future videos. And also, if you're enjoying this channel, please like, share, and subscribe. I would really appreciate it.